What's going on, guys? Ricky in the Flip Lab. Today I'm here with Steve Trang. Steve I met years ago, all the way back at, remember the Disruptor meetings over at Dave & Buster's?
Dave & Buster's, way back.
So before I did any real estate deals, that was like the first action I ever took when it came to me wanting to leave my corporate job and get into real estate.
Really?
Yeah.
You went to our Disruptors meetup back in the day before your first deal?
I would consider that my first action step I've ever taken when it comes to investing in, real estate and trying to get into it, and the connections that I met over there, that are still friends today is incredible. And, I thank you a lot for hosting those. And I don't know if I'd even have a podcast today if it wasn't for Real Estate Disruptors.
Dude, that's so awesome. So it's like, for me, we do all these things, but that's the kind of stuff that's so fulfilling to know the things we've done have worked. Because we kind of do all these things, but you don't really get a lot of feedback, particularly feedback after years. Right. So you hear these things yeah, man, I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah, I know. Obviously I've gone down the road now of making content, and sometimes you're are people watching this? I know people are, is it entertaining, value? But honestly, man, hearing the stories on Real Estate Disruptors and taking a lot of actually the information and actually applying it to my wholesaling business and helped me do, my first $1 million year a couple of years back. And it's really impactful for me. So always, you're one of the biggest go-givers, I think, around town. So it's great to have you on kind of full circle here. Yeah, I appreciate it. And you've come a long way, right? To go from a meetup at Dave & Buster's, right? Where we were we were having 100 plus people there, free food, free alcohol. There was no questions asked. So now you're hanging out with, Ricky Gutierrez, and it's just dope.
Yeah. That's kind of how life works. I think people are always looking for kind of the secrets, and the information is out there, but what are you going to do with it? Are you going to run with it and actually apply all the things, and the questions that I asked you throughout the years, or I would ask Max a lot of questions back in the day, and, just to kind of see it kind of play out this way is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, the secret is pretty simple, right? The secret is work.
Yeah, you can't escape the work, right? Everyone always wants to. So I kind of want to get into, I'm a big sales guy. I came from a sales background. A lot of my content is focused on talking to sellers on the phone and stuff like that. Yeah. I know you're a big sales guy.
I am.
Where would you rank, you need all these skills within real estate investing, right? Whether you're buying and holding, flipping, wholesaling, you kind of need to develop a lot of different skill sets to be successful. For sure. Where would you rank sales as far as on all the different skills? How important is sales?
I think sales, there's a point in your career where sales is the most important skill. There's a point in your career. Later on in your career is probably the third most important skill, right? Because the most important skill when you first start is marketing. If you don't know how to market, nothing else matters, right? If you can't get the phone to ring, right? Because the first question we always get from new people, what list should I pull? How do I skip trace? How do I get in front of a homeowner, right? Where do I get my first deal? So it's marketing. So marketing is the first skill you got to learn. Once you figure out marketing, then if you can't close those deals, it doesn't even matter. Sure. You can be in front of 10 people. If you can't lock up a contract, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So then sales is the second most important skill. And then after a while, once you start doing deals, you got to start finding people. And, when you start recruiting, it really is sales and marketing. We don't look at recruiting as sales and marketing. Recruiting is just sales and marketing, right? It's a numbers game. You got to get a bunch of bodies, fill out applications, get in front of them. Sure. Close them to work for your company, right? So then after you figure out sales and marketing, then it's how to lead and manage people, right? So then that's the third. Then at that point, that's the most valuable skill, because if you can't get your team to do what you need them to do, right? What they need to do, then again, what's the point? And then after all that, the most valuable skill is finances, because if you don't have money, you can't figure out how to keep your money. Again, what's the point? So sales, I think, once you've grown, is probably the third most important skill. Sure. But there is a point in your career where if you don't master this, you're going to be spinning your wheels for a while.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I looked at it too. I think one thing that led me to kind of be successful early on was I came from a cold calling job.
That's so helpful. And
I was cold calling business owners, selling them Yelp advertising. So we all know like Yelp hides business owners' reviews. They hate Yelp. So I would like cold call and be like, hey, you want to spend money on Yelp ads? So I was used to 95% rejection, but
lots of hangups, lots of like, you guys screwed me on this.
Oh yeah, all of that. So I developed 4 years of that before entering the wholesale space. So when I got on the phone with sellers and they were like, fuck off, and I'm not selling you my house. To me, I was already numb kind of to that rejection. But I do tell people, I think wholesaling, out of all the sales jobs out there, whether you're doing solar or selling ads, like wholesaling is really difficult. The rejection rate is extremely high when you look at how many leads and people you need to talk to convert it into any type of a deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. But what's kind of your, like, I know you've trained a lot of salespeople. How have you, or how do you help them handle that rejection or overcoming that?
It comes down to mindset, and we're talking about marketing, right? So like every time I bring in a new batch of people to learn, our sales process, the first thing I say is marketing is actually the first skill. And the reason why I say this is because marketing is responsible for identifying the leads that are potential sellers for us, right?
Yeah.
Because if we were to market the same way a realtor would market, we're going to get way more rejection. So we've got to be really effective in sifting and sorting, being very clear, cash close, 7 days, don't have to worry about any fees. Like, we say these things so that we get a particular set of people to raise their hands, right? And then after that, we're coming in with super low offer.
Right.
Right. So there has to be a good amount of rejection. So we just know going in, just if you look at historical data, 2 to 4% of the population will ever sell without a realtor. So we just know going in, most homeowners just don't fit us, right? So we can understand that going in, then also understand that we're about to upset some people.
Yeah.
Then at that point, the rejection becomes normal, right? You just have to know going in that they hate you,
right?
Or they're probably going to hate you.
Yeah. And I always take kind of the approach of trying to kind of qualify out. I think a lot of the acquisition sales type role, a lot of it is almost just sifting through leads and how quickly can you talk to someone, identify, is there pain, is there motivation, and either move on from the lead or, continue the conversation and, try to buy it as cheaply as possible. But I think a lot of new people get caught up in, they're not getting kind of yes or no's, and they get stuck with a pipeline of a bunch of tire kickers and maybes and like a lot of stuff that just won't turn into deals.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, if you look at rejection, right? Like, let's just say you go to McDonald's. Obviously, you and I, we're not going to McDonald's, but let's just say we did, right? What has the cashier been trained on since the day she got hired until through orientation all the way to her first day at the cashier? What's the question? Would you like fries and Coke?
Right. Yeah, do you want fries with that?
Right. That's what she's trained on. Does she like, oh my God, they said no to the fries? No. She doesn't care.
Yeah.
So that we got to go in there with the same mindset, right? There's just people that are, what we have to offer just doesn't make sense for them. We just got to move on.
And you can't convince someone to sell you a house for 50 cents on the dollar if there's no pain, motivation, if that's not the type of sale that they're looking for, compared to like other types of sales. Like, you might be able to just knock someone's door and selling solar or whatever item you might be, a magazine subscription, and the person might just like you and be like, you know what, I'll buy the product, and you can kind of convince them. But I feel like when it comes to, buying deals at deep discounts at wholesale prices, that's not something you can really convince, no matter how much of a shark you are on the phone.
You can't convince them unless they must make a decision, right?
Yeah.
They must make a decision, then you can convince them, right? And even then, it's not a guarantee. But then at least you get something to work with. But if they don't have to sell, that's just not gonna it's not gonna work out well in our favor.
Yeah, totally.
The other thing too I want to touch on is that if you look at sales, I learned a long time ago that real estate, and no offense to everyone outside of real estate, right? But real estate is the big leagues of sales. And the reason why is I don't have to convince you to sign a contract today, right? Getting you to sign a contract today, whatever, right? That's challenging. But first, I got to sell you on meeting me face to face, right? So I got to sell an appointment.
Yep.
Then I got to sell you on working with me. And then this is what most people miss out on. I got to sell you on showing up on closing day. We completely miss that part. We're like, I got to sign a contract. And then this is basically money in the bank. When we know about 1 and 2 will actually cross the finish line. We've got to sell them on showing up on closing day. And if we don't do that, again, what's the point?
Yeah, we had a deal even It was this older folk that we were buying this house from, and this guy, I had to give him directions. I had to pull up his house on my phone and navigate to the title company, and just like he had to write down directions because he didn't have a smartphone. He doesn't have a GPS. So he like literally didn't even know how to get there. But like sometimes you really have to, hold their hand the whole entire way and get them across the finish line. That's one of the biggest challenges that sometimes isn't talked about.
It's not, but that's what we get paid for, right? We get paid to solve problems. And the problems are not just on the day you show up. There's problems throughout. I got to sell you on the fact like the title issue is not our fault.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to sell you on, hey, I know it was at a 30-day close, but this bank that you did a mortgage with is no longer in business or doing everything we can.
Yeah. We're trying to clear title, but
yeah. So that is a process that needs to be explained sometimes beforehand and then throughout, so they don't forget, so they don't freak out, and they do show up at the table to close. Yeah,
lots of communication. I mean, we had a deal that got blown up because we promised her, hey, yeah, you'll walk away with $20,000 at the closing table, and then an IRS lien comes up that's like an extra like $30,000 that she made no mention of when we were like, hey, there's no other liens or anything. And then she was like, you guys promised me this. You guys said you were good to close, and we're like, you never told us about this other lien. Obviously, we can't still make that price work. Right. And the deal got kind of blown up. But that was kind of communication, I think, on our acquisitions person at the time when he got the contract signed in person.
Exactly.
Have you seen now like sales, is it changing your process now that we're kind of heading into possibly a buyer's market, or for the first time, at least for me on the phones, that we're not in this extreme seller's market? Mm-hmm. I've been in real estate like 4 years, and it's been, my house will sell for way more in 6 months. That's not the same conversation going on today.
Sure. Yeah.
So are you making adjustments in kind of your process now that we might be, at least in some markets, definitely in a buyer's market?
The process we're changing as far as the sales conversations is really just helping the seller understand that the market's changed without telling them the market's changed, right? Because the big thing is, if you explain and justify and defend, people generally raise their guard up and they're like, yeah, whatever, you're just trying to submit a low offer.
You're selling me on,
right?
Yeah.
How can I trust you? And I kind of, the joke I make in some of our sales training is like, a homeowner looks at us kind of like the sorority girl looks at the sorority boy at a frat party, right? Like, do you really care about me, or are you just kind of, whispering sweet nothing? So, I think it's really important that the way we deliver the message, and the way we deliver the message is we use I would say, hey, Ricky, like right now, like, the inventory's increased, interest rates up, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. Like, that's the reason why we can't offer that. They're like, whatever, I don't care, right? I'll go talk to the next guy, right? Because I'm explaining. But if I say things with like an assumptive tone, like we call it a presupposition tone. Like, hey, Ricky, with the interest rates going up from 3% to 6%, like overnight, like, how do you think that's going to affect the market? And now you're telling me how that's going to affect the market. And now you're not only explaining to me that the market's going to slow down, you, by explaining to me, are convincing yourself that the prices are going to go down.
And that's way more powerful than you trying to convince them, if they could kind of come to their own realization.
Right. So we always want them to tell us how bad the market's going with a presupposition tone.
Yeah. And now, we're in January of 23. I still feel like the conversation, though, like buyers have obviously shifted. I mean, they shifted 6 months ago, but I feel like sellers are still kind of like holding on, and
they are.
They're not as in tune to the market compared to like guys like us.
Well, they don't have to be, right?
Yeah.
Like for us, we pay close attention, it's like a hawk because we have to. This directly affects our bottom line. But, as much as we read articles, we see Facebook posts and this and that, the reality is for 95, 98, 99% of the population, none of this matters.
Right. They don't care about the CPI report.
Right. Like, they're pissed off about eggs, right?
Yeah.
But they don't really care about their house value, and that doesn't matter at all until they want or need to sell. Then at this point, now reality is hitting them. And it's sticker shock, right? I mean, like, if I brought you out, you just look at the price of cars, right? In the last few years, there was a period of time, not like a few years ago, where every car was negotiable.
Right.
And there was a period of time where not only was it not negotiable, if you weren't willing to pay over sticker, like forget about it.
Yeah.
Right. What kind of sticker shock did you have when you went to go buy a car? Matt,
it was like, whoa, when did SUVs get so expensive? I'm not buying a Lamborghini.
Yeah, when did you mean this is non-negotiable, right? So we went through this sticker shock, but we don't pay attention to what's going on with car prices.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing here. Like when they're first starting, right? So, it sucks if you're the first person to break this bad news to the homeowner. But again, I think if you can ask the question in such a way where they're educating us the consequences of interest rates going up, of the uncertainty in the market, right? Of inventory increasing, of all the homes going into foreclosure. We ask them questions about, hey, how do you think this is going to affect the value of your home? What do you think this is going to do to the real estate market? And they're educating us. At that point, then they can come to earth a lot faster than if I just here are the comps. What do you want to do? Right.
No, totally. And I feel like you've also done a good job, I think, with your team of, like, a funny story. Yesterday, I get a phone call and it says Disruptors. So I'm like, maybe this is about like our podcast today or something. Pick up the phone and it's one of your sales guys. I guess I filled out at some point like, I'm curious what's Steve doing with his sales, right? And I could tell it was one of your sales guys because right off the bat he asked, what's the opening question? I caught you at a bad time, or
probably caught you at a bad time.
Probably caught you at a bad time. And it did, even for me, like I already know that's your process, but I had to almost like pause, like, nah, dude, I got some time. And I got to admit, like, he was good. He was good. Like, he was, even after I was like, I'm doing a podcast with Steve tomorrow. He's like, that's a different objection, but he still like asked more questions about like, hey, like, do you need this, that, and kept the conversation going. I've seemed to struggle sometimes training other salespeople of like really getting them bought into my process. How have you kind of been able to do that with sales guys for you?
I think the biggest thing is just a massive commitment to process, right? It comes down to, I think first you got to hire the right people, right? And we hire a bunch of Mavericks. If you're unfamiliar with Mavericks, the PI, it's just basically people that don't believe rules follow them, right? High ego and rules don't apply to you, right? That's generally who we attract in sales, not just in our industry, but generally speaking.
Yep.
But even more so in our industry. So you got to be really committed to the process. And so one of the things that's really important to us is a growth mindset. So you got to be coachable. And so if we bring you in, you're not coachable. It's not a matter of like, hey, like I need you to do this. It's a matter of like, hey, I don't think you belong here.
I see,
right?
Yeah.
It's the coachability component, because if you're not willing to get better, you're just gonna stick out like a sore thumb, right? Like I've been doing this for 15 plus years, and every year I've gotten better at my craft, and I am a better business owner or performer than I was the year before, right? And it's because I have a commitment to growth and a commitment to process. If you're in my environment and you're uncomfortable with getting better, it's just going to be uncomfortable for you, right? So they have to be committed to the process. It's kind of like I heard a story a long time ago, right? Darren Hardy, someone I look up to as a mentor. He was at the Ritz-Carlton and he sat down with the manager at the Ritz-Carlton. He's like, hey, look, I got to ask you, right? Like when I showed up today, when I met with the valet and the bellhop, like they were super nice. They're super nice and friendly. When I walked in, the person that met me in the lobby was super friendly. When I went to the desk, they were super friendly. And then on the way here, like I bumped into one of your employees in the hallway. I was like, they were super nice. I got to ask you, like, how did you train everyone to be so nice and friendly? Yeah. And the guy's like laughing. He's like, we just hire friendly people. Right?
Right.
And the same thing here. We got to hire people that are coachable. They elect to not be coachable. That's fine. We're just going to release them back into the workplace or in the workforce.
Yeah. And something else I've struggled with hiring sometimes Mavericks, and this was my first year hiring salespeople. For the previous couple of years, I was just like, I'll do the sales work. I like being in the business. But I was like, finally, I felt like it was time to expand. And I had some sales guys that came in, learned all my knowledge. They were commission-only guys, and then they left doing their own thing, which I hear that a lot with other investors that I talk to. How do you try to prevent that from happening? Because I know you've been hiring sales guys for a long time.
Yeah. Well, for the longest time, our intent was to provide so much value you'd never want to leave, right? That's been our intent forever. The reality is that no longer works. It worked for a long, long time. It just no longer works, right? So this is the first year where we're actually going to make it harder for you to leave. So, but on top of all that, again, we're pouring so much value into our team members. Like, not only am I sitting down with them on a weekly basis, training them personally, but the amount of money we're spending money on marketing, the tools and trades we're giving them primarily because we're in other masterminds, right? Like, I have this incredibly fortunate situation where I get to work with the best operators in the country.
Yep.
And we get to compare notes, right? So what we're talking about is stuff that the general public does not know about. So now you're getting access to our secrets, right? And so with that, there's a commitment. They say, hey, like, you need to give us 3 solid years. And if you can't, that's okay. Again, right? So it's like, a non-compete. Like, if you can't give us 3 solid years, that's all right. Again, just this may not be a fit for you, and that's okay. Like, and it's not like a strong arm, right? It's just like, here are our expectations. Here's what we want. Are you comfortable with it? And if you're not, that's okay. Just like we have with a homeowner.
Yeah, it's definitely something I think I tried kind of going with. I'm a fulfill them with value and introduce them to all these people that I know and build connections with. But I do think on top of that, there needs to be more than just trying to over provide on value and hiring those salespeople. Especially
now, right? Because with what we're doing is we are adding stories to all the deals we're doing as well. And we're going to be highlighting our team members more. So they're going to be in front of a camera to narrate the story of a deal, right? Like, where this deal came from, what was the list, what was the channel, what was the first initial lead manager conversation was like, what did they hear, what was the motivation, acquisition manager, how was that appointment, right? And along the way, we have media guys following them to record this stuff. So we're going to be spending resources highlighting them and building their brand.
Yeah, I like that.
So again, if they're not comfortable with that, then it just doesn't work. So, because that was the thing, like, in the last few years, looking at it with how much money we spent on branding. What happened last year, as every time we built someone's brand up, they left. So they didn't. If it was just a sales component, it was fine. But once we started building their brand, for whatever reason, that loyalty was no longer as strong.
Maybe did they feel like they didn't need you anymore? Maybe they had their own stuff coming in. And
for sure, right? And again, like, it's fine. And I don't have any negative feelings about it. But as a business owner, I have to recognize, if I'm going to be pouring resources and investing in another individual, I need a long-term commitment. Otherwise, I can't make that same investment, right? I can't. It'd be like putting money into a rental property, right, to fix it up, only for like the tenant to take all the equity.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't make sense.
Right. No, and I mean, you look at some acquisitions guys that used to work for you, like, Ruben or Miguel and Rod, like, they've gone on and they've done
wonderful things, and I'm happy for them.
Right. And I've talked to them. It's like love for you, and it's like it's mutual. It's all good. But I also felt like they gave you a lot of time and put in the work and did deals for you. Where I think eventually, do you try to set that up like, hey, this isn't going to be like a forever role. One day I do want you to kind of, if that's what you want.
Like I said, a 3-year commitment, right?
Right.
Like, at some point you want to go do your own thing, like, go do your own thing, right? My hope is that you are one of our millionaires and you go on to do, amazing things, like your purpose that you shared with us, that you can go and accomplish those things later on. Yeah. I just need 3 years, right? Whereas before it was like 6 to 9 months.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. Kind of switching gears, like, I want to talk to you about podcasts a little bit, because you I don't know, I don't keep track of numbers, but you got to have one of the biggest real estate podcasts out there.
I think so.
And to me, I have a real estate podcast myself. I try to figure out, like, what's the biggest value that comes out of it. And to me, so far, it's been like just the connections. I almost feel like every time I have a guest, it's like I'm learning. I'm having like my own little mentor section with whoever I'm talking to. What's been the biggest value after all these years for you since you started your podcast?
It's the same exact thing. It's access, right? Like, prior to starting a podcast, me hanging out with Carlos and Sal wasn't really on the table, right?
Yeah.
Hanging out with Max Maxwell, not really on the table. So the first thing is definitely access. Second, it kind of turned into my own little mini mastermind, just like you shared. And then the third thing is opportunity, right? Just having people come in and say, hey, we'd be interested in collaborating with you on this or doing that. Like, we have Investor Lift, right? They're like, hey, we want you to promote our product. And I say, I appreciate that, but I don't do promotions on real estate disruptors.
You have your own products if you're going to do anything.
Yeah, I have plenty of stuff that I sell. So like, if you want me to promote it, like there's going to be a real cost. And so Investor Lift is the only one that's ever been like, okay, look, we'll give you some of the company, right? But those kind of opportunities don't come along unless you've got a brand, right? So we got that. I mean, I just started sales leadership with Ren Bartlett.
Yeah, that looks cool.
Yeah, right. And we got like Novations with Eric Brewer. These are things I can do because I have the reach, right? So we got a product that works, performed, and produced by people that are actually doing it, and I get to collaborate with them. But without the reach and the influence, what do they need me for?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of the way I see it as well. Keep growing, keep trying to provide value to your guests, and eventually opportunities come up, different relationships you meet, and that's the biggest thing that I kind of see.
Yeah, and I get to look out for my community and only bring in products that truly work, and I think that's the big thing, right? So one of the things that I've said no to a lot is other opportunities, and I know I've left like so much freaking money on the table, but I also sleep pretty good at night. Yeah,
and you got to be careful, I think, in this. You're seeing it come out a lot in almost this influencer space of whether it's these celebrities promoting crypto coins that are scams or whatever it might be. Like, you only have one name, and you got to make sure if you're promoting something that is something you actually believe in, that you know it works, and it could get to a point where it's easy to just kind of like chase the money.
Oh yeah, you could totally ruin your brand. So like when I was I want to say like 4 or 5 years old, my dad had a restaurant. Not my dad, my parents and my uncle and aunts. It was Golden Dragon downtown Phoenix. So I remember my dad's like, you only have one name, right? He said this when I was a kid, and I was like, okay, whatever, Dad, right? But man, how true is it today with social media and Yelp and Google and this and that? Like every once in a while, someone's like, who are you? I was like, Google me, right? And I'm not saying that as like, like to be like, this hoity-toity guy. Is that I've got a lot of good stuff, from all my years on Google and Yelp and all these other places. So like, you can see the people that have interacted with me have had to say about myself.
Yeah, totally. And I know we were talking about like an Investor Lift, and I know you're in a lot of masterminds with these guys who are creating all these different softwares. We know the people over at Batch, obviously. Yeah. And I'm interested to see, I've been thinking a lot you've been paying attention to the AI and Chat GPT.
Oh man, it's crazy.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I've been trying to think, and I don't know if you've talked to people about, like, do you see a future where essentially instead of like virtual assistants, we just have like this like Chat GPT that could be a transaction coordinator, possibly run your texting campaigns, pull the data, pull lists, maybe even do acquisitions and cold call in an AI voice. Like I've been thinking about all these things. I don't know if you've thought about it or talked to people.
I haven't thought about it, but I mean, let's just put that on the table, right? So the first one, pulling lists, scraping. I mean, I think scraping's already done, right? So pulling lists. I think the part about transaction coordinator, they could probably facilitate and remove some of the lower level TC work. But the thing that you can never replace is the human element, right? Like the reason why our sales works is because we can empathize. Like for years they've been saying, right? You got all this fancy equipment here. For years they've been saying, like, at some point we're not going to need a realtor anymore, right? Yeah. And we've got those Matterport cameras, right? You can see the house. You got a video tour. You got the Matterport camera. You got high production stuff. You still need a realtor to sell it, right?
That's true.
And I think I don't think that's going away, right? I think it's going to go away significantly for 95% of realtors. But I kind of foresee like realtors eventually becoming like travel agents, where like you're not going to get 3%. You're going to get maybe like a $5,000, retainer fee.
It's almost like advising more than exactly. This like 3% commission type.
Yeah. So I kind of see where that's evolving. But as far as our industry, with ChatGPT and automation, I think that we can never replace the human element, because you look at it, right? We talk about sales. Why does a homeowner go with us versus all the other options? It's because we can understand them better than anybody else, and you cannot replace that with AI today. I don't think you can replace that with AI in 5 years, 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, that's
with
kind
Neuralink. We'll see.
Right. Or like I've heard where like probably with the amount of even like podcasts I've done and all the sales call, like I have all my stuff run through call rails, so years of calls where if AI like listened to all of that essentially, that they could deep fake my voice and pretty much have AI Ricky, and it already knows how my cadences, my objection handling because it listened to all my calls, and it could just kind of call sellers and they might not even know. So I just don't know how close we are to that actually playing out.
Yeah, we will see. We'll see. I mean, you look at. So I'm a giant, Elon fanboy, right?
Yeah.
And he talks about like the full driving autopilot. Like I got my wife's Model X almost 6 years ago. Like her lease is ending in July of this year, right? The second lease, meaning in July it'll be 6 full years, right? That we've had a Tesla Model X, right? When we got the first one, it was like, would you like full autopilot? And we're like, yeah, hell yeah, I want full autopilot, right? And the sales guy's like, you don't want full autopilot. It's like, why not? He's like, because Elon's been saying we're right there for 2 years. We're not there.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, cool. Thank you, sales guy, for looking out for me. Right? And then we get the second one. Should I get it? Elon's been pretty confident about this, and we're still nowhere close. Right? And so there was an interview that he did, and they're like, what is going on? Like, you've felt like you're so close, and you just haven't done it. Like, what is going on here? And I can't remember what the term was, but basically it's like a horizon where like you feel like you're there, you can see the finish line, but once you get to that point, you can see this is what's left. And every time you get there,
some other new
there's
thing.
Other new thing that is an unknown, right? Like we know what we know, and for the most part we know what we don't know. But there's this massive unknown we don't know about. And so he's been saying like we're right there. And every time he gets to that mile marker or that milestone, wow, there's so much more. And I think that we're probably going to run into the same thing with AI.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think too. I just think there's a lot of talk at first and you could envision it, but seeing it actually play out. I mean, even just like with all these different softwares, they've been talking automation for years of different things. And when you get into some of the automation, it's like, this isn't as easy and automated as it kind of sounds, but it will be interesting to see in the future what it kind of looks like. Yeah.
And what's also funny is, are you active on Twitter?
Yeah. I just actually made a Twitter and started tweeting. I think I have 1 follower so far.
Everyone's a ChatGPT expert, right?
Yeah.
Everyone. It's really funny.
Yeah. It's like, it's revolutionizing the world, but it's like, who's going to do something actually with it? And I think it's still to be seen how that plays out.
My understanding is Microsoft's partnering up with them.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right. So that could be huge for Bing, and then we can kind of like knock off Google, right, off their high perch.
It's definitely the first thing I've seen that I think could potentially take out Google. But Google had that AI call in, making appointments to a barber shop. That was like 3 years ago, and then they kind of put that in the back burner. But I don't think they ever gave up on it. And they have all the data. They
got the data, and they got the tools and everything else, but I think Microsoft buying or partnering with ChatGPT in whatever context is going to give them a big leg up.
Yeah, we'll see. I
hope so.
Yeah. We'll see how that plays out. It's very interesting. Are you working on any new stuff in tech? I know you've always kind of dabbled in that space, and I know you. So you're part of Investor Lift now. Yeah. Before that, you had your own.
We had OfferFast.
OfferFast.
Yeah.
So did you kind of like combine the two, or how did that play out?
We got absorbed, right? So they acquired OfferFast and all its IP, right? That was the exchange for us to have equity inside Investor Lift.
Okay. And anything new, exciting, kind of coming up that pipeline? Because I do feel like, especially now, we're getting into a time. I know Investor Lift's mostly about like dispoing deals, and I feel like for the first time in a while, like dispoing deals is the hard part right now. Yeah, that's like the biggest challenge when you find deals.
Nothing on the tech side. I would say the biggest thing that we're doing is probably more on, if we're talking about technology side, is really probably the combination of real estate and blockchain. So we had Pete Kavanaugh. He's one of the guys in the Whale Club, another partnership I've got, and he actually was able to take his existing real estate fund and put it on the blockchain through, it's not Polygon's, another one, Phantom.
Okay.
So it's on the Phantom blockchain.
Yeah.
Right. And so not only was he able to put his real estate fund on the Phantom blockchain, where now someone can buy into his real estate fund. But Phantom, who again, it's their blockchain, is going to be one of the first investors into it.
Wow.
Right. So for us, we're really excited about this opportunity because, Paul Sparks and I, we created the Whale Club middle of last year, right before everything went to hell in the crypto world. And, to see one of our guys actually go from having a real estate fund that's already existing, cash flowing and this and that, right, to going onto the blockchain where he can start raising money from all the Bitcoin millionaires.
Yeah. So like you don't have to just raise money from accredited investors essentially.
Well, they're still going to have to be accredited.
Okay.
Right. So there's going to be KYC and all that other fun stuff. But look, that's already existed, right? Like the New York Stock Exchange, they started T0, I want to say last year or the year before. But they're already on this train, right? Like Wall Street and all the white collar guys, they're already seeing this future and they're already laying the path. So as far as accredited investor, you do have to be an accredited investor, but it's really easy to be an accredited investor because they already created all the necessary technology, smart contracts and this and that to verify all that stuff.
Yeah. I wonder how like smart contracts, when we might see, obviously we all know like title companies, it's outdated. Mm-hmm. And you could envision, like we were talking about, where it's done through the blockchain and maybe transaction could be closed quickly.
This is where most people talk about like the application of blockchain and like title.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that we are so far from that happening. And
I think so too.
And the biggest reason why is that like we're in a Phoenix market, right? And we're incredibly blessed. We have the best public records of all the counties in the country. Yeah. It's one of the reasons why all the iBuyers and funds start here, right? So we have access to all that. But if you just think about like BFE, Kentucky, right? That piece of land that we're not even getting title insurance for. Like if you buy a piece of land out in the middle of nowhere, you're not even getting title insurance, right?
Yeah.
When is that getting on the blockchain? It's gonna be a while, right? And you think about the value of the blockchain is to reduce human error. But in order for it to go on the blockchain, you got like, poor Betty, right? That's overworked in the county records, and she is gonna be the one
go through every single record and
put every single property on the blockchain. So I think that's much, much further away than most people think. But the applications today are, again, we're talking about Pete, right? He already has a real estate fund. He already is registered with the SEC. He's already been raising capital from accredited investors and already buying properties and already cash flowing and has statements that he issues to his investors. Oh. He's already done all these things. Now, what he can do is, if you look at typically if you invest in a fund, it's a 5-year commitment, right? Yeah. Ricky, I'm going to write you a check for $100K, and I don't need it back for 5 years. That's typically how it goes. But if I say, Ricky, look, I know I said 5 years, but I need the money back right now. You're like, look, I might be able to get you $65K, right? This is how it's going to work, right? Because you're committed to being illiquid. You're committed to having the funds tied up. But now with the blockchain, we can now liquidate people that want to get out of their existing investments.
Right.
Right. So we're going to be able to make it a more liquid transaction. So I think that if we're talking about all the different applications of technology and real estate, I would say that is the one that's probably the most interesting and fascinating for me.
Yeah. And have you ever thought, or are you taking any action? And you have a pretty big brand following of doing like a syndication or raising money for like big deals. I see a lot of guys with big brands. It seems like that's kind of almost the pathway a lot of guys take.
That is a path that I should probably take, but the path that's most interesting to me, and I've got massive shiny object syndrome. Like my biggest challenge, like staying focused.
It's hard in real estate.
Yeah. I would say the path that's most interesting is the infrastructure of blockchain. So I think that with all the people that are in real estate that want to diversify into the blockchain, we can provide a vehicle for that, and that they can invest in the infrastructure, right? Like right now we have, like you look at all the negativity around blockchain today. Where is it all centered around? A handful of crooks doing criminal things.
Crypto scam stuff.
Right. But there are a handful of criminals doing criminal activity where, whether it was blockchain or not, it's criminal activity, right? But they were doing on centralized exchanges, right? Coinbase is obviously good. Binance, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
Right. But Sam or whatever he did that was a complete scam. But those are all centralized exchanges. A decentralized exchange is where I believe the money's at, right? Because what's the point It'll be on the blockchain and being centralized.
Well, that was kind of like the whole point at the start. I guess it comes down to, though, like, do people really want that? Like, do people really want to have full responsibility and control, where if they send stuff to the wrong spot?
If you're on the blockchain, yes, right? Because it's really fascinating. If you look at, and I'm not trying to get into like politics here.
Yeah.
But if you look at the avatar of who's on blockchain today, I want to say it's like 98% libertarian.
It's got to be. It's people that they see the government's been kind of telling them to do a lot of stuff lately. Right. So
these are anti-banking, anti-Wall Street, anti-Federal Reserve.
Right.
They're the ones that are going to be more fascinated by the decentralized. They're in centralized right now because there's not a whole bunch of options, right? We don't know which one's going to be the good ones.
Yeah.
But I do see a future for decentralized, and I think that the opportunity to invest as a real estate investor potentially could be in investing in the infrastructure for a decentralized exchange.
Yeah, and I think there's always, rocky times with it, whenever new technology kind of emerges. Like, I was kind of young, but I'm sure like during the internet time, there was a bunch of stuff that seemed promising and then turned out to be scams.
Pets.com, right?
Yeah.
But then you look at Chewy.com. It's the same concept. Just 20 years later.
Yeah.
Right? It was too early, right? Because, at that point, Amazon was just selling books. Right? Like, they weren't trying to sell pet supplies. They were just selling books. And now Chewy, I think it got acquired by Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? But they did successfully what Pets.com promised 20 years ago.
Yeah, and that was like one of the biggest go to zero stocks.
Yeah, one of the biggest busts of all time.
Right? Yeah. So I see too, recently you switched where you're holding your brokerage out of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over
to closed our brokerage.
Or you closed your brokerage, and you switched over to Real, right? Yeah. Uh-huh. And I see you're with Matt Potter and Ryan Zolan.
Yeah,
what do you guys? So what are you guys doing over there?
I think you go back to collaboration, right? Collaboration over competition. And a lot of people say it, right? I think it's going to be really interesting in 2023. Because it's really easy for everyone to speak abundance and be abundantly mindset or act abundantly mindseted.
Right. And I know what you're saying.
It's easy to say these things and act in these things.
Yeah.
In periods of abundance.
When things are good.
Good. What's going to happen when things are scarce? When resources are scarce, right? Let's see what happens. And so. What's really cool is that I've been working with Matt since 2008.
He's a good dude.
Yeah. Right.
Love Ryan too.
And Ryan, we've been working together, I want to say for 4 years now, somewhere around there.
Yeah. I remember he was like, I think you were his first mentor.
Yeah. Coach. When he was just a realtor.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what we're doing here, and we got Ingrid Hernandez, she's the creative finance realtor.
Yeah.
So between the four of us, I think there's something magical we can do. With our downline, I've got reach, Ryan's got reach, Ingrid's got reach. Potter has got massive respect in the realtor industry.
He's been doing short sales for forever.
Nationwide, right? And so I think that there's just so much opportunity for us all to accomplish together. So that's what we're doing. And, for me, when I was looking at should I keep my brokerage or, move over to the Real, I will share it was a tough decision because right now, this month, would be the 10-year anniversary since I opened the brokerage, right?
Yeah, that was probably tough to just
It was tough to be like, hey, you know what? This is no longer working for me. But the reality is my focus was no longer traditional real estate. And because I was so focused on the investment side of real estate, I was losing traditional realtors. Right.
Yeah.
So as I was losing traditional realtors, now I was like, well, why are we fighting this fight when clearly this is not the fight we really want to have? So then we're like, let's just go to Real and just do what we're good at, which is creating content and helping people create financial wealth. And that's one of the things that's really it's going to be important for me. Anyone that's working with us, I want to be able to share with them the blueprint on how to create wealth. And creating wealth is not buying and selling, helping people buy and sell houses, right? Creating wealth is actually doing the buying and selling houses.
Yeah, knowing how to actually invest in real estate and how it all works. A lot of people that have never got their license, they might not understand that just traditional realtor school doesn't teach you branding and how to invest in real estate and all these other avenues. And then all the agents I talk to, so many are just they've been in the game 20 years and they have no idea about any of this stuff.
They have no idea.
It's mind-boggling.
And it's funny because like I talk about in real estate school, one of my most viral videos in the last few months was how real estate school is completely worthless. You know, but it's only worthless in the realtor component. Yeah. It's actually good information as a real estate investor. One of our best deals we ever did was because of stuff I learned in real estate school, right?
Really?
Joint tenancy, splitting lots, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I got a chance to learn that in real estate school. Now, could I figure that out on my own without it? For sure, right? But when this deal got kind of like sideways, like, well, we should just do this, and this stuff that I learned in real estate school, but completely worthless on the realtor side.
Yeah. And we're seeing like today, obviously education is everywhere. There's abundance of education. A lot of people have like great communities, you included. If you're like kind of new starting out and you're not sure like which tribe is yours, how do you go about sifting through the bullshit versus then there's a bunch of guys doing like legit stuff and they're good coaches, but like how do you find your tribe that you're really going to excel with?
So I think first and foremost, you have to recognize it's going to be really hard, right? Like it's hard enough for us, you and I, on the inside of the industry to figure out who's real and fake, right?
Yeah, it is.
On the outside, forget about it, right? So the reality is, if you're trying to figure out who's real and who's fake, you just have to assume that most of them are not real, right? So my recommendation, generally speaking, is to look to the person that if you're interested in their course or their product, do some research. Figure out, if this is the kind of person that's living the kind of life I want to live, as far as like personal life, right? Like if you're all about Lambos and Rolexes, right? Go get a guru that has a Lambo and Rolexes, right? If you want someone that's got a good work-life balance, right? Go find a guru that's got a good work-life balance. If you want to travel the world and work, 10 hours a week, I don't know who's really doing that right now, but if that's what you want to have, find a guru that's traveling the world and working 10 hours a week. If you want to do multifamily, find a guru that's doing multifamily. So I think the key here is to find one that resonates with you, right? Who's actually living the lifestyle. Then you can do research on them. I think that's the missing key. And then really, it's not too difficult to ask or look around, like, who are like, who's had success with this person, who's had bad luck with this person.
Yeah.
Right. It takes a little bit more work, but if you do that, you should be able to get your question answered.
Yeah. I mean, even look like we were talking about Ryan. It's like, well, look where he started and where he's at now. Like that's, to me, shows like there's real results there that you don't kind of always see across every industry, essentially, or every guru. I wonder if like the day will come where we'll have like a university, like imagine like a Phoenix real estate investor university, and you have, Pace teaching sub 2 and creative finance, you're teaching sales. Like I wonder if one day they might like all kind of come together and it will like legit be like
RJ Bates tried that.
A college replacement. Really?
RJ Bates tried that. I mean, he traveled the country and recruited all of us. Like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? It's like, yeah, I mean, maybe. Like, if you can make this happen, if you figure this out, right? Because it was going to be, Pace was going to be the creative guy, Jamil was going to be the co-wholesaling guy, I was going to be the sales guy, right? And he had a whole bunch of people that he was going to have in this curriculum. But I think you look at all our personalities and egos. It's
hard to get a lot of Mavericks together.
It's going to hard to corral all
together.
Of us,
right? Like guys like us who built these businesses. We're not college professors, right? Like there's a reason why we didn't kind of go down that route, and we're a normal teacher. But you almost see like all this information out there, and it's like almost. I feel like a lot of new people I talk to, it's like they just don't know where to start and kind of how to get into it. But I think to your point, I recommend people like start learning sales and start, grinding it out on the phones, because if you can't even do that, all the rest of the stuff within real estate, like you said, if the marketing's not hitting, you can't do sales. Good luck figuring out how to structure deals or raise money or none of that other stuff's ever really going to come.
Yeah, I mean, the unpopular advice I've given a lot is really just go work for somebody. You know, because now you get to learn and get paid on their dime. Now, are you going to make as much? No, you're not. But the information you're going to learn by being around them, you can't put a dollar figure on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just seeing sometimes, like I remember some of my new guys that started out and they were like freaking out, like what do I do here? I was like, dude, it's fine. Just send it like this. And they're like, oh, it's that simple. But sometimes you don't get that confidence to do it yourself unless you're working for someone who's done hundreds of deals and,
that's the value of a mentor, right? The value of a mentor is they give you clarity and confidence, right? Which gives you the conviction to do things the right way. Like the thing, like, I think I should do this, that give you all that conviction necessary. And sometimes it's all it really takes is that conviction to give you the faith to take that next step.
Yeah. Now we're in January 23. Any predictions in the Phoenix market? I know you study data like a hawk. I love like all your updates that you always do in the Phoenix market. I always tune in. Where are you seeing like 2023? Like what's going to happen in the Phoenix real estate market?
I mean, right now it's looking pretty good. We become a balanced market. It was a buyer's market for 4 solid weeks, right? December of 2022.
Yeah.
I shared that with my wife the other night. It's like, hey, Tina Tambor, she's a genius here. And she says Chandler's a seller's market again. She's like, really? Yeah. So we went and looked, and you can't find a house for under $500K in A5286 in Chandler. That window's gone.
Yeah.
Right? So we became a balanced market. Chandler became a seller's market in basically a flip of a switch. So we'll see what happens with the Fed rate, because we're expecting one more Fed rate increase in February, and then I think after that, I think they're going to be done. But it seems like the market's going to be okay. Now, I think we're going to be okay in 2023, but who knows what's going to happen in 2024? Because all those ripple effects from 5 straight rate hikes are gonna kick in.
At some point, it's gotta kick in, right?
And now we gotta look at recessions. Not to say that we're not in a recession right now, but it certainly doesn't feel like a recession, right?
Yeah.
Like statistically, economically, I understand we're in a recession, right? Credit card debt is through the roof for like all the households across the country.
Yeah, stocks, crypto, way down.
Right. But then you go to the restaurant, it's like an hour wait.
Yeah, you go to the airport, it's like people are traveling and having a good time. You
can't park anywhere, right? So that doesn't feel like a recession. So we will see how this all trickles through the economy. So 2024 could be really bad. Who knows?
Yeah.
But right now, 2023 feels like it's going to be okay, at least in the Phoenix market.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing I've been talking to guys is you got to be adaptable during these times. You can't be a one-trick pony, and you can't just stick to like what's always been working. You got to kind of adjust. Like creative been coming up a lot. Like everyone's talking creatives. You might have to pivot towards that if the wholesale deals go away.
I don't think maybe you have to. I think if you don't, you're going to miss out on some massive opportunities. Because how are you going to know what's a deal and what's not a deal if you don't know creative, right? Like forget the how to do deals in creative. Just not understanding it, you're going to miss out on deals completely, right? So like Eddie Speed and I have been having conversations about us pushing some of his products. And I'm going to be in his class, right? Like, you look at a couple of simple concepts, right? If I could, you're a tired landlord. I say, hey, Ricky, if I could share with you, right, right now, if there's a way where I could buy your rental property and, you won't have to pay any capital gains tax. Would you like to find out more?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Sounds great, right? And I can show you how we can do that, right? And I think the other thing too, and these are things I'm learning from Eddie, right? Like, I can pay your terms, right? I can pay your price if you're okay with my terms, right? We've all heard this line, right? But we haven't really talked about some of the creative terms that you can really get someone to commit to, right? Yeah. So if I could say like, hey, Ricky, like I'm good paying your price and I'll take over your mortgage, and that difference you want, I'm happy to pay it. I'm happy to cover that too, right? All I need is a 10-year note with no payments.
Yeah.
If you'll agree to that, I'm in a really good spot.
Sure.
Right. And so it's just these other ways of looking at creative financing. Because what do we look? We look at sub 2, wrap, and all these things.
Yeah,
which
seller finance.
And seller finance, right? Like, and they're great. Like they're wonderful tools. But that's just the first layer. There are multiple layers behind this, and that's where it's really cool to have the opportunity to sit in the front row, right? Be the the butt kissing student
Yeah, yeah, and
front of
I've
the
always
class.
had like that shiny object syndrome too. So for a while, I was kind of like, I don't want to underwrite everything as a creative deal because that's going to just create a bottleneck in our leads. And it's like I just want to focus on the highly distressed ones. That was also when hedge funds. I was just ripping 30K to hedge funds off new leads. But right now, it's those deals have dried up. Wholesale deals are extremely hard to come by.
They dried up, but it appears they also might be coming. They're right around the corner as well.
Yeah, that's what. So I'm hearing some talk around Phoenix that, you know, some funds are coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I found myself over the past few months of just waiting. And I don't like that feeling of like waiting for the hedge funds to come back or waiting for those wholesale spreads to kind of come back. Mm-hmm. So I've been a believer.
I think those spreads are coming back as well.
You think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because right now we're a balanced market.
Right.
And in a declining market, it's hard as hell, right? Because sellers' expectations are super high, buyers' expectations are super low.
There goes the wholesale spread.
That's the spread. That you get this massive delta. But the moment we're in a balanced market, now the buyers no longer need to have this built-in risk in their fee. And now we're a lot closer in alignment, right? So sellers have come to terms, right, in some capacity or another, and this is where sales does definitely come in handy. And buyers are now seeing that the market's no longer declining. They're no longer going to be pricing in 3 months of hard money plus additional risk. And now we can wholesale again.
Yeah, we stay in communications with Amherst or Roofstock and some of the, you know, the Progress and these big funds that obviously are buying out in Phoenix. And it's not like they didn't let go of all of their staff. Like it tells me that they plan on continuing to buy. When you look at how much they've already bought, I think that they have to continue to buy. I don't think their plan is just to stop.
Well, they have funds committed to this, right? And you look at strategically, you know, like if you and I had access to billions of dollars, would it behoove you and I to keep buying? Or should you and I not collude, but, you know, collude, right? And say, hey, look, I'm not going to buy if you agree not to buy. And let this market just cool off.
Because the funds are kind of holding that bottom from falling out a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, hey, you ready to start buying again? I'm ready to start buying again. Let's go play. Right. So I think it behooves them to buy it deeper by being a little bit patient. Yeah.
I think there's going to be, you know, a good opportunity there when the funds do come back. And a lot of people, agents and wholesalers and stuff that have kind of exited the market and found some other way to make money. I think that it's going to be good times for the ones that kind of stay in it. And
I'm super excited. I mean, I've been saying for the second half of 2022, which was not a popular statement, was like, forget thriving, right? I just want to make it through this winter so that when we get through this winter, we're going to dominate. Feel like we're starting to see a little bit of sunlight. Yeah, I agree. I'm hearing guys, some of the biggest, I was talking to like Jack, and he's like, dude, we have deals moving. I was talking to someone else and they're like, been talking to funds and they sound like they're about to start buying again. So hopefully all that stuff comes back, man. But I think it's about positioning yourself. And I think during these times, at least, I know for me, it was a good learning lesson and definitely learning lesson. Kind of grew a lot during this time. So, if people want to kind of see what you're up to, Steve, with your sales training, podcast, stuff like that, where's like the best place for them to reach out to you? The best way to reach out to me is on Instagram at steve.trang, or, you know, you can go to my Telegram, just stevetrangtelegram.com. I post updates in there. Beyond that, I mean, I'm constantly posting content on YouTube. So YouTube, Apple iTunes, and Spotify is just Real Estate Disruptors. But we're posting content anywhere and everywhere. So I would say definitely follow us on Instagram at steve.trang. Definitely follow me on Telegram, stevetrangtelegram.com. And then Real Estate Disruptors. Yeah, like I said, guys, Real Estate Disruptors, my favorite real estate podcast I've ever listened to. So thank you for making it. And like I said, man, thank you for all the help you've provided me throughout the years. Yeah, it's absolutely my pleasure. Appreciate you sharing that with me. Yeah, absolutely.